Welcome back to The Trade. I'm Gina Beck.
This is Drew Williams.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate y'all, especially the reviews on Apple Podcasts. It really means a lot.
Yeah, and like always, thank you again for the continued engagement, the continued support, and the hashtag Banana Cats.
How are you, Drew?
I'm alright, G. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just booked a flight to Texas. Gonna go see Jenna in July. That's pretty cool with Colin. It's gonna be fun.
It's awesome. I'm stoked for you guys. That'll be a good trip.
Yeah, it's nice to get to hang out with them at the same time because we all live in different places, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Hope you guys have a good time. Safe time, too.
Yeah, we have an interesting podcast we want to talk about today, and I just kind of want to start out by saying in no way, shape, or form is this podcast a negative one. Just before anybody starts listening and wants to form, your own opinions based off of what we're saying, this is just not a negative podcast at all. If anything, we don't care like about people's opinions or what they do with their lives. Like, we just want to talk about this. And I think, Drew, you should start talking about it because you presented it to me. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, and if you watch YouTube, you've probably even seen the ads because I'm shocked that they got ads for it. It's a documentary that came out on June 1st called What is a Woman from Matt Walsh of dailywire.com. And it's a very, very well done documentary. And I think no matter which side you sit when it comes to trans people, I think we all need to have a conversation about what we're doing to children. I in no way, shape, or form care what adults do to themselves, how they live, as long as it's not hurting others and especially not hurting children. But there's things that even in this documentary I had no clue about. Then I thought I knew a lot of things about this subject, and I think there's portions of it that I could see where people think it's disrespectful. But I really don't think he's that disrespectful throughout the whole thing. I think the other people just get mad because they have circular reasoning. Because he never gets an answer to that question.
Yeah, he never does. And I do think that how he said some things could be triggering if you were 100%, like firm in your beliefs, right? And you didn't care about what anybody else had to say. I think the way that he worded some things could come off as triggering. I know that, if I was in that position, I could feel how it would be triggering, and I like to put myself in other people's shoes. So that's all I gathered from it, is just the way he did ask some things. It started to get, you could start to see his frustration. That's what it was, where he was like not getting an answer, and he probably travels a lot. You could just start seeing the frustration, especially on the Dr. Phil show. Like, he really was like, you know, fed up. It seemed fed up with the same thing but different people, I think. But like, that's what you're gonna get, and I think that I could see why they would get upset about that, like the guy who didn't want to talk to him anymore, or the girl who was like, I could see this going a different way. If he would have used maybe different wording or a different tone, I don't think would have perceived it that way. But at the same time, it was valid, and that should be talked about. And like you said, there's a lot of things in this documentary I had no idea about. And I don't think that we think about, like, the long term is what really got me. The whole long term effects and how we don't know, and
The big
the
lie
you
about
know
how it's all reversible. That's the kicker for me. And
and it's
just
like not talked about to who is getting it done. Like how she was talking about the 16-year-old and how she didn't tell the 16-year-old about long term effects or anything.
Well, that's the part that I think it was when he started tearing up. There's a interview with a trans man who he runs an organization called Tre Voices, and he gets pretty emotional when he starts talking about his surgery and his life when he was a woman and how he had kids and things like that. But I didn't realize that the mastoidoplasties have like a 67% complication rate.
Yeah,
It's so he was saying that he'll have blood infections basically for the rest of his life.
yeah.
Yeah, and
In the 7 to 10 years, how you
he,
start to.
it's no different than bodybuilders when they use
Mhm,
heavy steroid use. There's generally they're prone to cancer because they're using
mhm.
the synthetic steroids and things like that. There was a lot of things in there. There's an interview. I love her, Dr. Deborah So. She was a sexologist that was talking about rapid onset gender dysphoria in female youth right now. How the statistics over the last like 5 years have like literally flip flopped from the data that I've read. Uh, just kind of checking what was in there. They were talking about up until about 5 to 10 years ago, most trans surgeries were like upwards of 80% were men becoming trans women, and it's flipped now. And I'm not saying that they're all children, but I think the whole lifestyle is being pushed on youth. I think that's a little trying to dance around this and be as polite as possible without sounding hateful. But
Because we are definitely not, like I, I want anybody to do what they want to do, but I think like anybody, a parent especially, an aunt and uncle, a brother or sister, I don't think a lot of people can like fathom just going up to a 6-year old and being like, or a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old and being like,
well, that was
okay.
like one of the books they brought up. Um, that is that actually people should would be pretty dumbfounded if they saw the pictures actually in these books because I couldn't even put them in the thumbnail. There's a book called Gender Queer that straight up depicts in a cartoon style um, how for 10-year olds how to perform oral sex.
Yeah, and that's not something they should be learning, Let
Like
kids be
no, and like
kids.
what like in heterosexual kids in none of them. They shouldn't be
Yeah,
around
none of them.
none of them. And then like this is the thing that I've really had a problem with and we've talked about a lot. Why do kids need to be included in drag shows? I don't even like beauty pageants. I think those should be banned from kids too. I think those are like magnets for weirdos. But I've always put drag in the same category as like burlesque. It's an adult activity. It's an adult entertainment. No question. Like why is this even a debate nowadays? It's so weird to me.
Well, especially like from the cases that we've talked about, it's not just a family event, you know? It Look at the people who are going, and even the time where the guys were throwing money. Desmond, right? Desmond?
Yeah, that was Desmond, and then the recent one in Dallas at the
Mhm.
they were actually putting underwear in their lingerie and stuff like that.
So it's not like a family event, just like, the child pageants. There's a lot of things that go on people don't talk about with those child pageants. It's the same. It's literally the same thing. It's just different. It called something different. It both involves children, but with the drag shows, they throw like I've never seen a child pageant where they throw money at them and stuff that I can recall. But like, why do that with the children that are dressing in drag? Like, either let it be a family event without sexualizing it, and or don't have it at all. That's what I think. And I just think it shouldn't happen at all, period, because it always ends up being sexualized. There's no way around it. There's always the weirdo in the crowd.
Yeah, and this is no way saying like I don't think actually if you really take the time to look, there's a lot of people within the drag community that are not okay with this push for children to be involved. And I there's a lot of them that try to voice their opinion. It doesn't get out there. People don't care. It gets
No,
suppressed by
mainstream
the algorithm.
doesn't, just like in the documentary, mainstream, you know, talks about usually one side of it.
The only person I can think of that's in the spotlight, at least on YouTube, is Blair White, which I was really shocked they didn't interview her because she's worked with Ben Shapiro and those other guys before. But yeah, she's really against having any children involved, and that's the only big one. I'll link her channel in the description below. You guys can check her out. She's very interesting. She's got a lot of interesting takes on a lot of different subjects and culture and things like that. But I would recommend everyone. Um, you can't just stream it one time. You have to pay for the month subscription. So it's $14 on dailywire.com. Do the monthly. If you're more conservative leaning and family based and religion based, it might actually be something you want to buy. There's a bunch of movies and other stuff they're adding. They're trying to build their own little culture, I guess, on there. But I think it's worth the $14 at least for to watch it once.
And
And
even if you're not and you just lack the knowledge of what we're talking about and you're curious, it's a great documentary for everyone, honestly.
yeah, it's got some funny moments. We talked about it a little bit. There's actually a interview with it's one of the clips that's going around with the guy at the Star Wars shop.
He lives in Aberdeen, Washington, where I was born.
Yeah, that clip. He's hilarious. There's some seriously funny moments in it, and then there's some other moments that might make you choke up and tear up a little bit. And
You might
it
learn something too.
yeah, absolutely. You might learn something. I think it's worth it. I think everyone should check it out. And if you hear somebody talking about it, ask them if they actually watched it and paid for it. Because if they didn't, they're just repeating stuff from other people. I really challenge you all to go and watch it.
Even for some people, they just don't understand stuff like this. Period. You know what I mean? They're out of the loop of the mainstream, and they just really don't care. They let want people do what they want to do, and they just don't even like. For example, I had a friend who didn't know what gender fluid was. You know, had no idea about. There's so many different names of everything. You know, had no idea. This documentary even teaches you stuff like that. If you don't even know about stuff like that,
They
and you're
they
just curious, you know, and you want to know what the heck is going on in society today, well, that documentary will let you know what's going on.
he
And go ahead.
I was gonna say he does a good job of actually interviewing people from both sides and lets
Hmm.
them. I mean, yeah, there's stuff I'm sure that people could say is selective editing and stuff like that. I mean,
Oh,
it's
definitely.
a
Yeah.
documentary. All of them have a
Yeah.
bias, but he
Yeah.
uh he interviews a lot of people from a wide range of uh people that would typically be, I guess, pro trans youth. I guess that would be a PC term, trying to be polite. Um,
Even the what was she? She was a trans youth counselor, wasn't she? The one
oh
with the
no, the
red hair.
gender affirming therapist.
Oh, that's with the red hair. That's what she was.
Red hair. Oh, I can't
Yeah,
remember. Oh no, no, that was the one that was more conservative. The one that was like an old school.
but she had a job with teens that are trans, and she even disagreed with the long-term effects of this and how they're not being taught these things.
Oh, you're talking about. Yeah, she. That was an interesting. There's so many interviews in there. It's about an
Yeah,
hour and a half. There's
there's
a
so
lot there.
many.
If you're into
I forgot her
Doctor.
name. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. If you're into Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's in there. Dr. Deborah So, who's some of the older guys might actually, because wrote articles in Playboy, but she's a psychologist and sexologist. And then there's Scott Nugent, who's a trans man who's got the big thing about talking about the risks and things like that. And then a whole slew of like the gender affirming therapist. I guess the other trans woman who's the surgeon. She's the number
Mm.
one surgeon, vagiomastoidoplasty
Yeah,
surgeon in North
therapist
America.
was even in there. Like, there's a
Yeah,
wide
there's
range of people. But
Absolutely.
our the point of us talking about this is, you know, we just don't like that this is being pushed on the kids. You know, it's it's just kind of scary, you know, because we want the kids to have their imagination. Like the guy was talking about Santa Claus and stuff like that. Like, let them hang on to that imagination for as long as they can. I mean, that's what we would have wanted, and that's what we got. You know,
Yeah, just don't load them up with experimental stuff. That's all I ask. If you're an
they're just not
adult,
at the age to be able to make the decision for a long term, life changing thing and understand the consequences. You know, I just feel like remember us ourselves at that age, or look at the kids that are around you and your family. Are they old enough to make those decisions? And if you think they're not, you know, what's being pushed in schools, maybe not in your area, but in other areas it really is. And
I mean, everyone
we
always
don't.
likes to blame California and the West Coast, but you look at the last few ones that have been protested was in Dallas, another one in Indiana.
Oh
It's
yeah,
it's
it's
all over the
all
place.
over. Hmm.
Yeah.
But there are still quite a few areas that don't deal with this, or you know, it hasn't came up on their radar yet, or their school hasn't done it yet, or whatever. But either it will, or people got to make it not happen, you know. And that's just it's up to the people. You guys got to vote. You guys got to make sure you know who you're voting for, and
Yeah.
putting people in the positions to be able to make those changes, you know?
Yeah, voting locally is important and paying attention to who's actually in charge of stuff directly around you. It's something we've definitely disconnected from.
So I just want
And
to let you guys know this conversation is not aimed at anybody particularly. It's not just, we're just talking about a documentary, and we just want the kids to hang on to their innocence for as long as possible. I think we all really care about that. At the end of the day, like, we all can agree that that's important. So until next time, banana cats, I love y'all. Peace.
banana cats, much love. Peace.